Shortly after announcing his new album, Welsh MC Mr Phormula drops his first single featuring none other than the legendary Detroit lyricist Guilty Simpson. Mr Phormula delivers his usual vocal mastery of the Welsh language while Guilty does what he does best, smash verses. Safe Bet is available everywhere now. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr Phormula featuring Guilty Simpson, Safe Bet right here.
Especially like with hip hop and the kind of stuff I've been doing, because hip hop, you just represent yourself. That's the whole point of it. And I think when someone that's on the same wavelength here as you represent yourself, they know you're not bullshitting. So, you know, when it comes across as you putting yourself through your art form, whatever that art form is, I think it becomes a representation of yourself. You don't need to understand hip hop or rap or any kind of music to feel the energy of it. You know, it goes back way further than language, you know what I mean?
Yeah. One time.
We'd done this first gig and loads of rugby players thought we were a stripper group. Loads of these massive guys turned up and they seen 5 guys on stage doing rap and that, and they were like, they left instantly. You don't have to dress a certain way. You don't have to talk a certain way to do what you love doing. If you want to do this or that, you do it, you know what I mean? You don't have to copy the next person in order to get into that.
Nemesis of the mainstream.
Real recognize real on the same team.
My home is where I claim king.
I roll with the roots of Llewellyn.
Originality's the main key. Worldwide, hear my name ring.
Clay fly the name stays blazing. Knöjor då jag så flowen well tailored. Paupen till en suit snap som de väl grave. Yo, Quair Donald and Nicola Kane Bernal Dalen Gunnar Hjolly at Alabama Rara.
Hello and welcome to the One More Thing podcast, a place for interviews with inspiring minds across the beat stratosphere. This month we are flipping the switch to mark the 50th anniversary of hip-hop in August. It is the start of a trilogy of interviews with rappers on both sides of the Atlantic. We start on my own doorstep, Wales, with Mr Phormula. A Welsh hip-hop pioneer with over 20 years history in Welsh music in bands such as Pep Le Pew and A.W.D.L. He's an award-winning beatboxer, he's a teacher, and he's collaborated with some of the most biggest giants in their game, from KRS-One to Guilty Simpson. And as you heard on the intro, he's also getting props from none other than Chuck D. Above all though, he is a proper hip-hop soldier, tirelessly pushing the craft and the culture and Welsh language. I can't lie, I'm really new to Welsh language hip-hop, and it wasn't until I wrote an article on Welsh music for DJ Mag that I really got into it, and I linked up with artists like Ed Phormula. I've been inspired ever since, through his music, through the way that he plays with words and flip between the languages, and his incredible performances. My relationship with Welsh language hip-hop and any non-English hip-hop has been greatly enhanced and enlightened massively by this man and by the culture. Fresh from releasing his new album, Artist with Dual Language, Mr Phormula joins me for a special podcast where we discuss his career, the Welsh identity, and of course the universal language of hip-hop. If you're interested in what you're hearing, One More Thing is also responsible for a monthly show called Come Dancing, a celebration of all electronic and beat-based music from the land of song. From house music to hip-hop, it is a unique and beautiful experience. Very much like this conversation. I hope you enjoy it. If you really like what you're hearing, then you can support us on Patreon. And please look us up on one-more-thing.co.uk. I'm Dave Columbo Jenkins, and I'm about to sit down with Mr Phormula. Enjoy.
Real recognize real on the same team.
Mr Phormula, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Absolute pleasure. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm kind of all Mr Phormula'd up. Like, I've just spent the last couple of hours just like properly exploring your career. And we'll get into why in a minute, because most of my podcast interviews, there's a long history between me and the artist. But with myself and you, this is all relatively new, really. You know, we've met, we've been aware of each other for the year. But your career goes back for 20 years. We've both been operating in really similar circles, but in completely different universes in a way, really. It kind of highlights how big and how small Wales can be. But I want to start with a question. You know those times in your life where someone opens a door and you're suddenly exposed to a whole other world of music or art or culture. When was the last time that kind of happened to you, where it's just like suddenly it's like a jolt to the senses and you're like, wow, I didn't even know this existed, and it's like all this input just hits you all at once? Has that happened to you at any point in your life?
Wow, what an amazing question. You're going straight in with a question.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I got to be honest, if that happened to me when I was younger. And ever since then, I've just always been forever trying to find the next new stuff. So I'm continuously on a wave of trying to find stuff. So in regards to something just coming out of nowhere and going bang, it has happened, but it's in the realms of stuff I already listened to, if you know what I mean. So I haven't heard a new style of music where I've gone, holy moly, this is it. That really hasn't happened, because I'm always continuously immersed in listening and trying to find stuff. So yeah, so I guess that's to answer your question. Nothing really has happened like that.
That doesn't surprise me in a way, because the way that you approach music, and when I listen to everything that you've put out and we explore your whole history, is it is a world of music within itself. In any one Mr Phormula album, there are so many styles. You know, on the new album, there's a lot of kind of house and techno and garage influences, just as much as there are, you know, it's all hip hop, but the beats and the musicality, and going back through anything like Pep Le Pew and A.W.D.L, like, you know, there's always been a lot of other musical influences in there. So you've always been this incredible kind of melting pot of influences anyway. So that doesn't surprise me at all. The reason why I ask is because this is the world that I've been hurtled into since writing and exploring Welsh music. For the last year, since I've started exploring it, I have been just immersed in this ocean of incredible Welsh music, which you've been part of, you've been surfing in for your entire career, really. And that's why I asked, you know, kind of what if you'd experienced that, because that's what I'm currently in at the moment. And it's really exciting, you know, just finding out more about it every day has been a school day. I've learned so much from yourself. Where would you say, I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of where Welsh music is at right now in 2023? It feels to be in a really healthy position, but I haven't got any reference points from before. So what is it from your perspective?
Oh, I mean, we're in the best place we've ever been, without a doubt. There's absolutely no doubt at all. You know, and you know, as examples of such things as when I was younger, like the kind of music, I've always been alternative with the kind of music I make. That's just how I've always been, but it's never had the light of day at the crucial times on like Welsh radio and telly and stuff, because it's always a bit too edgy or whatever. But the point where we're at today, all kinds of music gets utilized and played on TV and radio and stuff. It doesn't have to be as safe anymore. And that's an amazing thing, because it means there's more exposure for all sorts of artists. So it's not as traditional now as it used to be. You know, it used to be quite, like when I was younger, I remember we'd sort of have to, well, not just when I was younger, but not too long ago either, I'd have to sort of make music and kind of cater what I'm doing to sort of be played in the daytime and stuff as well. So I'd not dumb it down, but I'd have to give my music a kind of vibe, you know?
Yeah,
to make it fit. But these days that isn't really as much of an issue, and it's like Welsh language artists even getting hitting like 1 million streams and stuff, and that's absolutely incredible. And we're on an international stage, you know what I mean? That's how I've always viewed it. That's why I've got the guests that I've got on my album, because it's like we're not a tiny country with like a minority. We're not that at all. It's only that when you see it like that and when you think of it like that. When you think of it as an international stage, we're a country that has bilingualism, and we've got a rich history. You know, when you put that through music, it creates something truly unique. And I think that's starting to shine through now a lot more, and the newer generation as well are pushing it even further. So yeah, we're onwards and upwards. That's the way we're going. So.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I mean, I kind of want to dive into especially the connections that you've made in the US. I mean, I was kind of going to build up to that, but I mean, I think that is a reflection of where we're at as a nation, where you're at as an artist. the acceptance and other kind of factors as well, like what's happening in Wrexham with Ryan Reynolds and stuff like that. And now Welsh language television is about to be like broadcast in America and stuff. What do you think it is? Why? Yeah, what is it about America's current interest in Welsh? You know, from comments that you've had from people that you've worked with, like Lord Wheeling and Guilty Simpson and people like that. Have they given you any kind of indication as to why America in particular at the moment seems to be very empathetic and accepting of Welsh culture and Welsh people and Welsh art in this way?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. I haven't really got a direct answer for that, to be honest. But I think it's just, I think people are starting to see that we've got a rich history that's, you know, worth exploring and worth representing. You know, I think people are starting to see that, especially with like I'm saying, on the global stage, when you see what we've been through and where we're at, and the you know, especially the arts, like, you know, the arts that we have and the arts that we represent in Wales is just, there's just something to it, you know what I mean? And I think one of the things that I think sort of hooked a lot of people in was A.W.D.L singing A.W.D.L. You know, when he sang that at the World Cup, I think, you know, that I think that got a massive amount of attention, not just because of that, but I think it was just a nice little extra hook to pull more people into, you know, to Wales. You know, we're an amazing country. We always have been. You know what I mean? And we're here and we're thriving and we're going onwards and upwards, like I say, you know. And I think it's just, you know, when people hear what we're doing, I think they can just relate to it. You know, especially like with hip hop and the kind of stuff I've been doing, because hip hop, you just represent yourself. That's the whole point of it. And I think when someone that's on the same wavelength here as you represent yourself, they know you're not bullshitting. Sorry for swearing. They know you're not faffing or whatever. So, you know, when it comes across as you putting yourself through your art form, whatever that art form is, I think it becomes a representation of yourself. You know, and I think when people can connect to that, they can see it. And go, oh yeah, hang on. These guys aren't just messing about. This is, you know, no, I think that's, you know, to answer your question sort of in a weird way. It's hard
I think so. I think people can relate there, and it's like real attracts real in that type of way. People have these natural kind of senses for authenticity, really. And like you said, and it's totally fine to swear on this podcast, bullshit detectors, really. That, you know, we kind of have like it inside, really, without realizing. And I think when you open yourself to bilingual rap of any language now, because you've opened this door for me, like I get goosebumps off bars of yours where I don't speak Welsh. I wish I did. One day I'd like to learn. But I get goosebumps off some of your bars just because of the sound and the ferociousness and the clarity. And I don't even need to know the words. And listening to it's opened doors to other languages, as, you know, kind of rappers as well, which wasn't there. And I think when you open yourself up to that, you can even sense authenticity when you can't even hear the actual lyrical content. It's the energy, it's the soul, it's the personality that you can feel, isn't it?
I 100% agree with that. You don't need to understand hip hop or rap or any kind of music to feel the energy of it. You know, it goes back way further than language. You know what I mean? And I think when you hear something, you just know internally, you connect to it. You just know. Like for example, there's this amazing artist. She's called Pongo. She's from Africa. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she does like rap, but she does it on like sort of rave music, and it's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And I can't understand the words she's saying, but it's like it's literally one of my favorite tunes. It's so good, and I think it got picked up. It got used in like FIFA, I think last year or something. So before I knew about her a while ago, and she didn't have a lot of views on this one track, but then it got put onto FIFA, and it's just gone. It's gone massive, you know what I mean? People are like, oh, this tune's so good, it's on FIFA and stuff. You know, so loads of people don't understand what she's talking about, but so good, man. You know what I mean? And that just, you know, I've done loads of tracks with artists that I don't understand what they're saying, but I just love the fact that we don't need to have that as a barrier to communicate with each other. You know, we're communicating through a higher power, and music's the one, you know? So.
Yeah, definitely. Music is the universal language in that type of way. And what's really inspiring and interesting and exciting and quite humorous, really, about your story is that you didn't really care that much for the Welsh language until your teens, I think, wasn't it? If I remember the previous interview you've done.
Yep, absolutely. And the bizarre thing is that with the work I do now in schools and education and stuff, the story I'll tell you quickly about now is pivotal to what I do in my sessions. So I tell the young people exactly what I'm about to tell you now, and it sort of puts me in the same wavelength as them then. So hopefully they can see that you can use languages in a cool way. So I grew up using the Welsh language as like fluent, so like first language at home and stuff. But as soon as I'd go out of my house, it was pretty much turned into English, as most young people do. And then I got to secondary school. So I was using Welsh language in primary, got to secondary, and then it was like revolt time. So I'd rebel against everything, especially Welsh language, because I just saw it as I wasn't a bad kid or nothing. I just didn't want to do anything I wasn't interested in. So, hearing Welsh language, I was like, that's like clocks and stuff. It's like a language that just gets used in a class that gives me no extra skill or interest. What do I need it for? So I never used it. And I left school. I didn't really do very well, but I was sort of quite big-headed, really just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and that was it. So I left school, didn't do very well, but I managed to get into college just about. And it was in college where the light bulb came on. So I met this guy, he's called Aaron. He was in a band called Pepper Pew with me. And he goes to me one day, he's like, hey, you're a beatboxer? And I was like, yeah. He goes, listen to this. And he started rapping in English. But then mid-sentence, he flipped it to Welsh. And the first time I heard someone use Welsh like that, it was like a light bulb moment, And as soon as I heard that, I was like, whoa, hang on a minute.
So that was your door opening to the musical universe.
Yeah, the first question that you had earlier about things happening and blowing your mind to another level, that's what happened with me in Welsh language. Was literally, I remember the days very clear. And that's what opened up the floodgates, really. And then that's what I tell young people, that's the day my career began, really. If that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have crafted or carved out this massive career that I'm still on,
Yeah. That you're still kind of reaching the summit on it, of feels like, really.
I'm nowhere near where I want to go.
Yeah. I mean, Pepper Pew, like, they're kind of credited. I know there were other Welsh acts beforehand, a lot in hip hop, but you're credited as one of the first ever kind of Welsh hip hop bands in that type of way, really, aren't you? I mean, it was there weren't that many people doing what Pepper Pew were doing in the early 2000s.
No, you had like the main big ones, really. Llwybr Lleithog were credited as the first ones to do like electronic rap kind of stuff in the early 80s, I think mid 80s even. Shout outs to John and Kev's, absolute legends. And then off that, then you had like the Public Enemy Welsh version, which was Tystion, which are absolutely next level. They still are absolutely incredible. Anytime I hear a Tystion track, I'm like, oh man, this is like the essence for me of where like Welsh language rap has come from. And then the next thing was us, really. That was it. So we were a live band. So it was me and Aaron. And then Aaron, when I quit college, pretty much a couple of days after I met Aaron in college, we spoke about that rap thing. He showed me that. And he goes, you got to come to the studio with me and meet Dulme. You got to meet him. And I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's just quit college. So we quit college, jumped on the bus.
Let's just quit college. Brilliant.
Yeah, he just went to the tutor and said, hey, look, this isn't for us. I knew I was doing the right thing. There was just something pulling me towards that way. And ours as well. So we jumped on the bus, went to Dull in Garndol Benmaen, which is about 20 minutes away from here now. And he had this massive studio that he was sort of living in. And I met Dull, and me and Dull instantly clicked. Like, instantly. It was like we were already mates. And we just started chatting about music, and it was literally a week later, me and Dull, I moved in with Dull pretty much, and we'd just be making music just without stopping, just for continuous days, and days would turn into weeks and months, and then people would come in, and then we'd be jamming, and then this whole world opened up to me, which I never even knew existed. Welsh language, music, and the industry. I had no idea it was even there till that happened. So if I'd heard that in school, I'm pretty sure I'd have changed my attitude towards Welsh, but there we go. These things happen for a reason, because now that's what I do as a job. So
Yeah, definitely. But music was always there beforehand because, and I think you did the right research, I think you started beatboxing or took an interest in it, when you were like 9 or something like that. You were super, super young. So this was already something that you were doing. It was already part of your life in that way. Hip hop culture was.
Yeah, in secondary school, that was one of the reasons why I was sort of rebelling so much, was because I just wanted to do what I loved doing, which was, there was 4 things. So it was like beatboxing, obviously, rapping. So I was writing my own stuff. I learned how to DJ, and music production. So making my own music. So I had the tight, close circle of friends, and that's all we'd do. And just literally, we wouldn't even talk to each other. We'd just meet up with records and stuff, and we just wouldn't talk. We'd just be making music and mixing and smoking. and that was it. That was my entire universe. I knew I was like, I don't want to do anything else. There is nothing else that I'm doing. So it obviously is tricky at that age because your parents are like, well, you've got to do something. But my mum was a singer and my dad used to work with PAs and speakers. So I was quite lucky. They were quite cool with what I was doing.
Oh, wow. So you were kind of brought up in that type of culture then. They were open. Yeah. They weren't too strict about getting a proper job, a normal job. Because that was something about like the Welsh identity and Welsh culture and growing up, especially in working class Wales, is that, kind of the arts and singing and music is encouraged, but only as a hobby. There was always that kind of focus or message that we would get either from school or parents or families to get a secure job before, you could have dreams of being a musician or anything. Absolutely. And I think that's part of the working class, that identity. And Wales being mainly working class, really, it's something that certainly a lot of Welsh people can relate to there. But you didn't have that quite as strictly as other people then.
Not as strictly. So I was very fortunate in that sense. And I ended up, as soon as that happened with moving to the studio, well, not moving in, but staying there with D.W.L, I was like 17, just passed my driving test. And then I just said to my folks, I was like, hey, look, I'm going. And they were like, but you haven't got a job or nothing. And I was like, I'll figure it out. Don't worry. And then, then that was literally it. I just went on the D.W.L and just made music and made money on the side with music and stuff. And then I eventually got to the point where I had the 9 to 5, just answering phones or whatever in Porthmadog. And I just got to the point where people were asking me, can you do a workshop? And I was like, I don't know what that is. And you're like, oh, you just need to teach people what you already do. So I started to do a bit more of that. And I quickly realized, no one else is doing this. And I quickly realized, hang on a minute, there could be an opportunity here if I just take the jump, make the leap. So I quit my job and just set up a business. And it was quite bizarre.
So that call center job was the only job that you've had, which is non-music then?
Yeah, that was the only one. Yeah, I had it for like 6 months or something. It was soul destroying, soul destroying.
Sending shivers down my spine just thinking about working in a call center now, memories of a whole other lifetime ago, really. Yeah. So what was the first big success as Pep Le Pew then?
Here's a funny little story for you. This is one of the ones. So we were doing loads of gigs and that, and we were getting quite good traction. And at the time, I was living in Port and stuff, but I was on the D.W.L in Amlwch, so I had to keep going back to Amlwch to stay to see my folks and then pick my money up or go to the D.W.L office and then go back to Port or whatever. And anyway, so we got to a certain point, we were doing music videos in like Spain and things like that with Welsh language rap. I was like, I'm only like 17, this is crazy.
Wow.
And, so I'm on the D.W.L, right? And the lady in the D.W.L office one day goes, hey, look, you've been on the D.W.L for a while now, and we need to get you either moving, so you're looking for interviews, or we can get you on this. It's called the New Deal for Musicians. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I remember that years and years ago.
There you go. So she goes, right, this is the New Deal. I was like, all right, okay, what is it? And she goes, well, come up to the office and you can have a look. So she gave me a leaflet and she's like, hey, I'm just going to pop out for a minute. And I'll be back here. So I was going through the leaflet and I was like, this is all Welsh bands. And I was like, man, I know that band. That's that band. I know these guys. That's those guys. I was doing a gig with them last weekend. Got to the centerfold and it's Pep Le Pew in the middle of Spain doing this music video going like this. And I was like, yeah, I better go off the D.W.L because I'm making money off this music stuff and they're going to click on at some point. So there was that day I just thought, right, man, I'm going off. I'm going off the D.W.L. So I clicked off. But that was one of the high points. I was just realizing, actually, yeah, man, I'm living off music here. This is a good feeling. That was one of them. And then, we got to tour all over the place. We got to do some pretty big gigs. From what I remember, there was a lot of a lot of session and stuff involved as well. But you know, when you're young and you're doing music and that, what else are you going to do?
Oh,
You know,
massively. It is part of the culture, I think, you know, when
yeah.
you're kind of coming through. It doesn't have to be in lifestyles change in that type of way, but it is kind of part of the culture. I mean, with these
Oh,
gigs, then they were outside of Wales then as well. What was the acceptance
what did
like?
we
Or was
have
it all
outside?
within Wales?
Most of them were in Wales, so we were doing quite big headline gigs. We were like headlining the Steddfod, headlining Session Vow, we're headlining all sorts of big gigs, which was really cool. So we were playing to like thousands and stuff. It was really smart. We did a couple of things, which I remember where we played. I think we did some stuff in Spain. I think France as well. I can't quite remember. It's going back a while. It's going back a while, but it was pretty cool. We got to travel all around UK and do stuff, and yeah, you know, the classic. All the boys jump in the transit van and then off we go. It's one of those classic ones. You know, sleep
Yeah.
where you can kind of thing. But it was an amazing
Yeah.
experience, and to think that I was catapulted into that. Whereas you put me a year and a half before in school rebelling against the Welsh language, and a year and a half later doing gigs to like massive audiences in the Welsh language, it's totally bizarre.
Wow, representing.
Yeah.
So how did Pep Le Pew kind of wind down? Because then the next chapter then, which happened, it feels like, and certainly probably looking back now, it was like, you know, almost immediate then. But then things took an even more crazier change then with Genod Drwg, isn't it?
Yeah. We sort of Pep Le Pew just sort of dwindled, really. Yeah, just like band politics or whatever, and people having kids and needing to support families, which is understandable. You know what I mean? It's just how it goes. And it just sort of came to an end, really. And then I remember at that point I was living in Tremadog, so down the road from the studio near Porthmadog. I was living with three guys, and we were always like chatting about stuff or whatever. And Dol was over one night, and so me and Dol were in Pep Le Pew, yeah, and we were like, "Hey, do you know what we should do? We should start a new band." Yeah? And Dol, we'd had a couple of drinks or whatever, and Dol was like, "Oh, I don't know." And it's like, "Oh, go on, Dol. If we started a new band." Like, and the other guy, Geth, like we were all sitting there, and Geth was like, "Yeah, man, we should just start a band. Let's do it. We might as well, yeah." And we were like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Let's go." And Dol was like, "Oh, I don't know." He was like, "Come on, Dol, let's do it. Come on, Dol." And he was like, "Oh yeah, go on in." And then we just decided to start this band, and that was literally how Genod Drwg
Wow.
came into existence, really, just like that.
Wow.
And then, and then Dol came up with the name because he was a big fan of Clockwork Orange. So you'll notice when we robbed the logo of Clockwork Orange, and then
And I mean, he dressed up like them as well. He would wear the
yeah,
little
there you
bowler
go.
hats and stuff like that. I was
Yeah,
watching
there
the
you go.
videos and stuff like that. It translates to bad girls, doesn't it?
Yeah. The first gig we ever did was in club rugby, Porthmadog, in the rugby club, and no one knew us at that point. And we'd done this first gig, and loads of rugby players thought we were a stripper group. So loads of these massive guys turned up, and they seen five guys on stage doing rap and that, and they were like, they left instantly. So
These weren't the bad girls we were expecting.
yeah, exactly. So I think we did a show to a couple of people. That was it. But then, you know, go ahead a year into that, and then we were like, again, it was just totally bonkers. It went further than Pep Le Pew, though. It was like, yeah, crazy.
I mean, it was kind of like, I mean, there's obviously I can't understand the lyrics there because it wasn't very bilingual. It was all Welsh really. But there's a kind of boy band aspect, but kind of cheeky chaps, like quite playful, not in a kind of squeaky clean image, but it was very, you know, this was for the youth market really. You were a boy band essentially, but with a kind of, you know, a subversive twist in that type of way because of the Clockwork Orange references and stuff.
Yeah, that's a very good comparison. Yeah, for sure. We were just a bunch of guys having a laugh, and it literally was just that. Dol was he's a very clever guy, Dol, and he just had this idea of like, right, if we call it like the Genod Drwg thing, we'll spell Drwg with double O-G, so it's like Drwgs from Clockwork Orange. So it's like the bad guys kind of thing. And he was like, if we use that as our image, and then we'll have like a branding of that. And then if we take our inspirations from like Western soundtracks and things, and we can have like big anthemic sounds, and then that'll tie in with our image. And so Dol, fair play, man. He had like the initial ideas, and then we sort of all in and sort of realized, oh, okay, hang on, we've got a different sound here. And then we started to bring that together. And at the same time, we were just surfing the wave and being being young men up to no good, you know. So yeah, I think ultimately that's what the demise was. Unfortunately, that we just went off the rails a bit too much towards the end. But I think if we'd have just carried on, if we did it this age now, it wouldn't work. You know what I mean? But if we were this age now, back then, and we were in that situation, and we were all a bit more focused, I think we probably could have gone further. You know, but. There we go.
There's definitely signs of that. Kind of looking back, there was definitely signs of that because you had now, and I know I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Was Breathe with Oyer?
Breathe with Oyer, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like a really early song for you, but that was a huge success. And there was like a version with Kate LeBon, which is absolutely beautiful. I heard that for the first time this morning. Like, but that kind of really accelerated you guys into quite the spotlight, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool, man. We got to do all sorts, man. We played like with an orchestra in, well, not full blown orchestra, but we got to play at the Electric Proms in London and stuff with like a small orchestra and things. And we did like Radio 2 interviews, and so yeah, we things were happening. It was really cool. Like, but at the same time, you don't really. I'm sure you know this yourself as well. Sometimes you just don't realize you're in it. You know what I mean? You're just surfing no wave without actually, until you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? You know, when you look back and go, oh man, we were actually surfing some serious waves there, you know, but you know, at the time you're just sort of just trying to make what you can out of what you have, you know, and you're just trying to keep your eyes on the prize in a way. But yeah, we had some cool stuff going. It was
brilliant. Yeah. Was there the feeling then that all of the stuff happening with Welsh language music and bilingual music that's happening now, was there the feeling back then that, you know, that was going to happen, that was on the precipice, that you were about to be, you know, kind of, especially being interviewed like on Radio 2 and being in the Royal Albert Hall and things like that? Was there that feeling that, you know, things were about to explode to the level it's at now at that time?
It's cool you think that, like, because I still feel like I'm just in a wave. So I actually don't have a perspective on where I'm at in anywhere really. I just feel like I'm still doing what I do, and you know, if I get success from it, cool. You know, at the end of the day, like I make my living from the educational thing. So the music, performing and touring thing is just a massive bonus that I love to do and I love to push. But luckily, I'm not just surviving just on that now. So it doesn't quite feel like I'm scrambling to just get every opportunity. You know, I'm just living it and loving what I do, and hopefully that translates through my music and stuff. So the feeling I've got really is just loving what I do and just going from one thing to another and just enjoying it. That's what life's all about, isn't it? You know.
Definitely. And I get that impression from what you do, but there are challenges, aren't there? And there are kind of highs and lows. And I would imagine then when G.N.O.D. split, that was probably a bit of a low. And maybe I think there were a few years where you needed to find a bit of focus, or you were finding yourself really in a way.
Yeah, it was a shame. I did feel it. It was like a big breakup, you know, like the way it felt. I sort of like, we got to the end of that line and I was just like, oh man, it was like we've put so much time and effort into like these last, you know, Pep Le Pew as well. Like that combination of those two bands must have been 10 years, I'm sure. But you know, the combination of that and like headlining Session Vow to like thousands of people and things, and like doing that Radio 2 thing and going to France and I was just like, oh man, we're on to something. And then when it all just stopped, it literally just stopped, and it was like, oh man, we've just stopped, and it's like, so it was, I struggled with that, because the thing is, what I was saying earlier with you know, with me making music, and sometimes feel like I've got to sort of dumb it down a little bit so I can get more exposure to like masses in Wales and stuff like that. It's nothing against like the audiences or whatever. It's just that's what you have to do in order to get on the radio. But G.N.O.D. was already like that, you know what I mean? So G.N.O.D. already sounded cool and already had that commercial sound. So G.N.O.D. could do whatever and still be on the radio in the daytime and stuff. And that was the beauty with G.N.O.D. It was very accessible. But for me as an artist, on my own, I was into very heavy stuff, you know? So the kind of stuff that I liked at that time was no way going to get played in the daytime on radio and stuff like that. So it was very difficult because I found myself in a position where, again, I had to restart everything for like the third time, you know? So Pep Le Pew obviously started, that finished, you got to go back to the beginning. it's like you've failed at the computer game. You got to go to level 1. So Genna Drug
Yeah.
was level 1 again. So Genna Drug finished. It was like, oh, I've got to start the game again. You know what I mean? So I was in another band with Nair and Caradog. He was in Genna Drug with me. It was called the A.W.D.L. And luckily, me and Nay were still pushing the A.W.D.L. So we had loads of opportunities, luckily, with that. And that was harder than Genna Drug. So it was like a way for me and Nay to get our harder style on the side, you know? So luckily, we built a good base with that. So yeah, we got to go LA and all sorts of stuff for that. So we were very lucky with the A.W.D.L. That was that was one thing that was amazing. Yeah, we got to work with.
What took you to LA then?
Well, it was Hugh Stevens that did the link to begin with. You know, Daedalus. Do you know him?
Yeah. He's really fascinated by Welsh culture, isn't he?
Yeah, that's how the link happened. Yeah, so he was coming over to Wales to do a A.W.D.L session, and he was asking Hugh Stevens, "Hey, look, I love rap and stuff, obviously. And I was wondering if there's anything such as like Welsh rappers." And Hugh Stevens was like, "I've got just the guys." So he linked us up with Daedalus. We got to do a Radio 1 A.W.D.L session with him. And then the result of that then was a TV company in Wales called Boomerang at the time. They were like, "Hey, let's push this even further. Let's see if we can get you guys to LA to work with Daedalus, and we'll go over there." So we ended up going over there, and we did a music video for a track, and we got to hang out with Daedalus, and we met people like Flying Lotus and stuff. It's pretty cool. Gas Lamp Killer. Crazy.
Wow, because that was like, that would have been like late 2000s, yeah? So like 2009, 2010 maybe.
Yeah,
and that was exactly when Flying Lotus and that whole beat scene in LA was absolutely, it couldn't get any bigger, and it was kind of running in parallel with dubstep over here and stuff like that.
Huge. Yeah.
What a mad time to be in the thick of that. Wow.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So that all happened, and then at the same time as that was going on, then I was sort of starting to build my foundation as a solo artist, because I quickly realized, right, I'm going to have to build myself as well, because, you know, if this happens again and the A.W.D.L finish, which ultimately it will have to, then at least if it's just me, then I'm the only one that can control whatever I'm going to be doing. So I was like, right, I've got to build myself as well. So it was that point, and I started to push myself a bit more, doing the beatboxing and live looping and whatever, and all that. I was going to
say, is that when you started getting into the kind of competitive world then? Because I know then you started, you know, getting involved in beatboxing championships and looping championships and won a few titles. Yeah.
I won a few things. Yeah. So 2013, I was UK vice champ in the UK. I got the Welsh championships, then I won that in, I think it was like 2018 or something, and I won it again in 2019, I think. So yeah, I got to do a lot of stuff for the beatboxing thing, and the competing thing's amazing, but the problem is it just takes so much time to prepare something, and it's a really it's not clicky, but it's very strict in what you can do, you know what I mean? So for example, if I've got 5 pieces all sorted at 3 minutes each, it's taken me months to get those. You get to the gig or to the battle event, and if for some reason the PA isn't bang on stage, people don't really say anything about it. They just try and perform through it. But for me as an artist, I'm like, hang on a minute, man, this PA or this monitor I can't perform with that. And then if you speak up something like that, they'll just be like, tough mate, put up with it. As an artist, I felt like it was a bit like, man, this isn't my bag. I can't be doing with that. I like to be a bit more professional. So there was a bit of that. But you know, having said that, I made loads of amazing contacts, and I got to do loads of amazing stuff, got to perform all over the place. And yeah, and I still do, obviously, the live looping things also is pivotal to what I do. So, you know, loads of skills. So, you know, it wasn't as if it was a wasted effort.
No, just another kind of world to explore, and another universal language, really, you know, kind of beatboxing and things like that is another way then of connecting. Yeah, completely like another language to add to your bilingual repertoire in that type of way, really. Cool. And then, I mean, he was kind of also establishing himself, because there was the Rap Britannia documentary. I mean, this is kind of going back to, you know, kind of you finding yourself as a kind of solo artist, really. But around that early 2010s was where Mr Phormula really started to develop in that type of way. And you started to get into the groove as a solo artist in that way, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. That's where I started to realize, hang on a minute, with these machines that I'm using and these live looping things and the Welsh language thing and the rap thing and the beat, but I was like, no one's doing that at all. So I was like, right, this is the opportunity where I can combine all of those passions that I've got into one box and use that box when I perform, you know. So I was like, right, this is it. If I can push this, I reckon this will elevate what I'm doing as a solo artist. So that's sort of where that came up. And then, yeah, other things happened. It, you know, the universe just sent cool stuff over, like Rap Britannia, like Charlie Sloth and stuff. And I got to be involved in the UK rap anthem, which was cool. But unfortunately, there was a big issue, unfortunately, that happened out of that, which sort of knocked me down as an artist. So it's supposed to be, the whole thing was apparently was going to be performed at the MOBO Awards. So after the whole thing came out, it got massive traction, obviously, and I was just like, man, this is crazy that I'm on this. Cool, I'm buzzing, let's go. And then Radio 1 were like, right, yeah, we're going to do this in the MOBOs. And I was like, bro, that's insane. We're going to be like, I'll be rapping Welsh in the MOBOs. That's crazy. Yeah. So anyway, I made the greats on it as well. Just a little side note. But anyway,
wow, like he must have been super young then.
Oh, bro, yeah, I'll send you the video. He's like, I showed it to him a couple of weeks ago in Focus Wales, and he was just like, man, is that, oh my God, I remember that. He was like, I was like so young. But yeah, so supposed to be in the MOBOs, and so in advance of like a month of the MOBOs, I was like, right, I got to hit every newspaper up, and I want to get some traction off this, because I think this, you know, so I was pushing for interviews or whatever. So I got a load of interviews. People like, oh yeah, man, he's going to be doing the MOBOs and whatever and all this and that. And then the day before the MOBOs, everyone was texting each other. It was like, does anyone know anything about the MOBOs? And everyone was like, absolutely nothing. We don't know about what time or nothing. And then basically Radio 1 just put like a blanket tweet, a standard blanket tweet going, oh yeah, UK RA won't be happening at the MOBOs. And that was literally it. That was it. Yeah, and there was no other form of contact. It was like, that's it.
Wow. I mean, kind of knowing how the industry works, there must have been all sorts of politics and reasons behind that, but that's not the best way of finding out. And I did, during my research, I read that. I was like, what? Like, because I saw that journey then. So the first news story that I saw was that you were set to play at the MOBOs. And it's like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know this about you. But then the next news story I read was how that had been, you know, pretty unprofessionally taken away from all of you. That's, you know, these are the type of blows that any creative individual has to face and has to overcome. And it makes you a stronger person eventually, but that must have stung a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. It was, I lost sleep over that stuff, you know. It just wasn't nice, you know. But at the same time, like you're saying, it made me more resilient as an artist, and sort of realize, hang on a minute, though, it doesn't make a difference. It's just like a little something that could have been part of my repertoire, but it doesn't make a difference, because at the end of the day, I'm me, and I'm the one that's making everything happen. So it's like, oh well, let's just move on from it, you know. And then obviously other things happened down the line that elevated my status again. So it's just like, you know, you just roll with the punches, don't you?
Yeah. And I mean, some of those incredible things that happened after that, then, I mean, being invited to take part in Hip Hop for the World, then, you know, kind of 13 other rappers from all over the world, with KRS-One kind of leading the charge. Yeah, I mean, that's like, again, like, I mean, that's the ultimate of bilingual rap right there. Like, it's such an amazing tune with so many different, like, you can't get more diverse than that, really, can you?
Buzzing, man. The day that happened, that was one of those, going back to your first question with what blew your mind, that was one of the first things, that one of the things that took me back to that day when I discovered, like, you know, Welsh hip hop and stuff like that. Seeing that KRS was on it, and actually seeing it and being like, bro, KRS he's actually on the track. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And then going through it and then seeing my parts and stuff and just being like, this is insane. And like, yeah, getting loads of shouts off people that I know that I haven't heard of in a while. And they were like, man, we just seen you on a track with KRS-One. Oh my gosh. I was like, yeah, crazy. So yeah, that was a career highlight for sure.
I guess, I mean, you didn't hear the finished track. Nobody heard the finished track until everybody had submitted their parts. So like, you know, when you're doing that rap and you're recording it, you know, in a really kind of classically kind of bleak Welsh, like mountainside, you know, like it makes it like watching that video and seeing you stand out, and everybody's in their ends in that type of way. It's an incredible project that I can't believe didn't, you know, I think that should have been bigger than it was in that type of way.
You know what the funny thing was? I'm not sure what actually happened, but it did nearly hit 1 million views. And for some reason, it got taken down and someone else has copied it and re-uploaded it. And now it's got, I don't know how much it's got now, but it's nowhere near that now. But I'm not sure what happened, why it was pulled down. It's beyond me, I don't know. But it did get like incredible traction. So, but then it got pulled out. So
what was it like when you saw the final product for the first time and you saw everybody else? And did you make friends then with the other rappers? Did you all kind of get in touch with each other and stuff like that?
Yeah. I've spoken to a bunch of them. I've done a few tracks with some of them. I've done one recently.
Yeah, like Sandman.
Yeah, Sadman's one of them. Yeah, he's a guy from, I think he's from Iran. I think he's from. He's an amazing MC. And then another guy is Strike the Head. He's from Italy, and I just done a track for his new album. So I speak quite a bit with him. He's a sound guy. I spoke to a bunch of them. They were all really cool, but I seem to have formed more of a friendship with Strike the Head. So yeah, I've said like if I ever end up over Italy, I'll give him a shout. And he was like, yeah, we'll definitely link up. So he's a cool guy.
Right. Yeah, and this is something that we've spoken about in the past, really, is this solidarity with underrepresented languages, with minority languages. There is this solidarity between rappers, and like, we've said before, like, you don't even have to understand what each other are saying. You're fighting the same fight. You're on the same path. Like,
you're on the same path. Yeah. And and that's an amazing tool to have. And it's an amazing way to represent what you do. 'Cause when I use that in schools and things and try to tell young people, hey, look, you don't have to dress a certain way. You don't have to talk a certain way to do what you love doing. If you want to do this or that, you do it. You know what I mean? You don't have to copy the next person in order to get into that. And I see loads of that, like, especially with like rappers and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, you don't need to, just be yourself. You know what I mean? Look at me. I don't dress a certain way or anything. And I'm just super passionate about what I do. And that's all you need. You don't need like the bells and the whistles and stuff.
Definitely. But I think that's something that only age can bring. But it's not until you're like 10, 15, 20 years into your career when you look back and think, no, like, the moments where are the most authentic are the ones when you're truly being yourself, really, in that way.
Yeah. And you're totally right. And I think as well that, with down the future, you see that properly, but then it's not until then as well that you're sort of able to do it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And that's what the strange thing is. Again, when you're in that wave, it's hard to look outside. It's hard to detach yourself, isn't it, when you're in the wave? I think
completely.
It's an amazing skill to have.
Yeah, and I think like also tenure is an amazing thing to have been able to be successful in. And because I've fast tracked into Welsh music and learned so much about you in such a short space of time, that it's really interesting looking back at videos, even on the Hip Hop for the World video, you look like a very different person. And I think like you've, kind of coming up to the present day, you've matured, you've grown into your career in a way. You look like the hip hop soldier that you've always been. Whereas, and this might be offensive, but videos of you 10 years ago, you could be mistaken for a young farmer. If you know what I mean, like, I think like it's the image of you now, like you've been on your career, you've been on your journey, like, but whereas before, if you walk past somebody on the street, they might not know you as a rapper, but now, like, you've got you carrying that 20-25 years of hip hop culture and the journey and the ups and downs. You've kind of matured, you've grown into that type of look, if you know what I mean. I hope you don't mind me saying that.
Oh no, thank you, man. No, well, I was massive as well. That didn't help. I was like, massively overweight, massively unhealthy and stuff as well. So, and I think these are all, again, things you learn later on down the line, But what's cool with the newer generation, like, they seem to be a lot more health conscious, which is really cool to see,
Yes.
So that's really cool. Like, you see like younger people now not drinking as much and stuff. And that's really cool to see, man, because it's not until I've been a bit older that I've realized, I don't need to really drink anymore. So I don't drink.
No, I know you're teetotal and stuff like that. Really, you're incredibly disciplined, inspirationally disciplined from conversations that I've had with you, like, kind of just socially about that type of aspects of lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think if social media existed in the early 2000s or late 90s when I came into music, I wouldn't have had as many of the vices and habits that I would have had, just because I would have been too wary about being caught on camera and stuff like that. Absolutely. We were very lucky that we could get away with what we got away with back then without it being put on the internet. And I think that's been a huge influence for the new generation, like, that there isn't as much privacy. So you don't get as, naughty as maybe our generation might have done.
I think you're right. And I think that it's a good thing and a bad thing, but I think it's more of a good thing because it means people behave a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a
But
good
back
thing.
to, kind of where you're at now with the new album, I think this, it's a great follow on from Tunes in a way, really. But there's a grimier aspect to it. It's short, it's succinct. There's a
Yeah.
lot of electronic influences in there. This is the peak of your musical journey so far, just as much as this is the peak of where you're at really right now. I think. How do you feel about this as a body of
Yeah.
work?
I'm glad you said that. Thank you, man. I feel it's been a really comfortable journey making this album because I sort of released everything, all my not fears. I wanted to make this album for me, not for maybe people who want to hear it on Radio Cymru or people, So Tunes is a cool album. I enjoyed making it, but I feel like I put filler in there and stuff. I feel. So it's like 14 tracks. Some of them are like you're going to hear them on Radio Cymru and stuff like that, which is really cool. That's awesome. But this new album, I was like, I just want to make an album that I want to listen to. That like if I heard someone else do it, I'd be like, oh, that's a sick beat, or that's different, And seeing where like hip hop is now as well, like the whole Welsh music industry in general, like English speaking, Welsh speaking, the whole scene has changed, which is great to see. And I just really feel like, I can make some cool beats that can go in with that. So I was like, right, I'm going to represent what I'm doing from the mountains up here, but do what I really love to do. So that's why the sound is all so different and is, different inspirations from here and there and everywhere. So I'm not really worried about it not being played anywhere. If like the fact you just said now you enjoy it, that's enough for me. I'm like, yeah, cool. That means my job is done. And I really enjoyed making it. And I feel like I just put a lot of, the universe just made it, and I just sort of was I was just sort of like the vehicle to get it all in.
Conduit, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel with it. So there was no limits, man. I just sort of went, right, yeah, I want to make I want this one to be about clocks. So I'm going to call it Amser. So that's all about clocks and how you spend the minutes of the day and stuff. So that's what that one's about. And I was like, yeah, let's make a beat about clocks. It doesn't matter if it doesn't get played anywhere. It's a cool concept. Let's just do it. So that was my mindset for this.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I just enjoyed making it. So
God, that's brilliant. I think there's every track kind of stands out in its own different way, but in the back, I think captures you. There's a line about you. You don't want to be like the guys on TV. You are happiest in the background. You don't want the spotlight. It's not about the spotlight for you, is it? It's about the culture.
Yeah. It's not about the spotlight. If you get put in the spotlight, it's like, oh yeah, cool. All right, that sound. But that's not what I'm aiming for. And I don't think that's what you want to be aiming for either. When I was younger, I used to be like, oh yeah, I've got to, I need to be there. I need to be this. I need to be up there. And then it's like you get a little taste of it, and then things like that UK rap anthem happen, and then you quickly realize, oh yeah, if you the higher up the ladder you go, the more yin and yang you're going to get on both sides. And I was like, do you know what? I don't even know if I want to put up with stuff like that. So it's like I'm just going to do what I love doing, and wherever it takes me, that's a lot more important. So that's what I stick to.
And that's been the consistency of this entire conversation and your entire career in that way. You've been able to, the path is never straight, but I think if you stick to what you love and you stick to that original passion and try not to it's really, really hard with so many distractions all of the time in so many different ways. But when you stick to that original kind of passion, and this has been said to me in previous interviews and previous podcast episodes, like that's when the magic happens, when you try and keep it as pure as possible, really, isn't it?
Just remember, I think a bit of advice I always give young people and stuff as well is if you feel yourself sort of veering off or you haven't got the energy or whatever, you just need to remember why you got into it in the first place, so that those feelings that were conjured up in you when you were in your bedroom like DJing, or when someone bought you a piece of wax and you're like, oh man, I got that latest 12-inch or whatever, and the way that makes you feel is like if you just remember back to that and forget all the static and the periphery stuff, you just go back to that for a minute and remember why it is you actually do what you do, and then that often is like a good reminder for me.
Yeah. So I mean, you just mentioned kind of what you say to younger people, and that is still that's your bread and butter, that's your day job. And you teach in a whole variety of places, from prisons to primary schools. So you must have had some really, really fulfilling experiences or people coming back to you, having done it for so long now, that you've seen people that you've taught, and you might have, said, or, given them some type of wisdom or taught them something which has put them on a path like you've been on a path. Yeah. Can you think of any of those, any examples?
Yeah. I don't want to come across as big-headed or anything, but that whole thing happens all the time when I go to gigs and stuff. It's like, hey, you came to my school. And it's like, oh, wicked, and they're like performing and stuff like that, and it happens all the time. It's just a cool feeling, It's just really cool to, it happens all the time. It's just a nice feeling, man, to know that I've not pushed, given wisdom or not even wisdom, just made someone feel creative or feel good about themselves at some point or another, and they've gone, oh yeah, that was really cool, and then they might not see me for 10 years and go, oh, I remember you, and then the fact that it left that imprint is, that's priceless, and you can't do that with any record deal or any aspect of the music industry. That only happens from a human to a human through communication, and that's that's an amazing thing to have, to have that sort of connection with someone. And like the prisons and stuff, man. There's I finished a project not long ago in Llywelyn. Big up the crew at Llywelyn. Absolutely incredible project. Some super talented guys in there. So yeah, man, and they've been able to do other things as well afterwards. And so it's. I
think that's brilliant, especially with the prisons, because that's again another thing about Welsh identity and growing up. Is that whether it's North Wales or South Wales, opportunities, especially with people who come through since the 90s, and industrialization is no longer a kind of employment option anymore, that if you don't fall into music and you're of that kind of creative mindset, other distractions can basically, I would imagine that you've grown up, a lot of people you went to school with ended up in prison like I did. Like there are loads more. It's part of the Welsh kind of upbringing, is that crime and drugs are really, really close nearby, because there are very little other opportunities and other things going on. We're not given, there aren't that many resources. There weren't many youth clubs or anything like that. So I think your work in prisons really resonates with me, because growing up as working class Welsh, that lifestyle is never far away. And we've all known people who have been taken down the wrong routes or made mistakes through no fault of their own, I think.
Yeah, it's life, isn't it? You never know. As we've been talking about with surfing the wave, something might seem like a good idea at a certain point in your life, where you think, well, I've got nothing else going, let's try that, see where we go, and then you might get a taste of this or that and think, oh, let's just keep going down here then, and then the next thing, it might not turn out so well, but it's a shame. It's a shame, but it exists everywhere, but music's a great vehicle to pull people out of that, or to at least help people be therapeutic about what they're doing as well. And I'm super passionate about that, using music as a vehicle to, help people be positive, or to get issues out of themselves mentally, because as soon as it's out of there, then it's out into the ether, and it's a lot easier to deal with, I think. Music's a great way of doing that, especially when you record it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And you could only be recording it for yourself in that type of way, really. It doesn't have to be like, anybody who gets into music, it doesn't have to be. And I think this is something that the internet is really kind of distorted in a way. The minute you start making music, it's got to be a big hit. You've got to be doing this, and you've got to be, you could be the next big star, when actually people have always played instruments. People have always written poetry, always sung and stuff, just for personal cathartic pleasure, and just to, give themselves, a voice, an expression, like confidence and stuff like that, really, isn't it?
It's that release. That the whole social media thing is such a double-edged sword. Sorry, it's it can be an amazing tool for communication, like we've got now. But then at the same time, when you think about young people that aren't fully developed mentally, and they get to use these platforms openly, and it can easily go down the wrong path, and it can really mess people up mentally. I mean, it can mess me up mentally, and I'm like fully aware of the issues of it, and it can still easily pull you down unless you're fully understanding of the perspective of of other people as well. You know, like if someone sends you a negative comment, I think rather than read it negative, you've got to think about, well, why is he sending me a negative comment? There must be something. He must be going through something there, you know. So I think giving people the benefit of the doubt is really important. But when you're younger, you're not going to think that. You're just going to see text on the screen and think, oh, what's he saying about that? Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where things can get a bit tricky, I think. But
yeah. You're such a positive, grounded and philosophical person. I can't imagine anybody sending you anything negative. I mean, we all get sent negative stuff, really. But when was the last time then that because you do get those days and you see something or you get sent something and it just puts you in a really shitty mood for the rest of the day and you can't shake it. When was the last time that happened to you? Because all I see is positivity from you, man.
Yeah, I always send positive. Well, I think a lot of it can come from young people. And I think a lot of the time they just can't handle someone being positive and stuff. Sometimes it's like if you go into a school and I'm like, you know, positive, whatever, it's like, oh, who's this? Even you could be like David Beckham or someone, and it might still not resonate with someone, you know what I mean? They still might come from there with negative vibes or whatever, and then go, oh yeah, I wasn't going to say anything there, but I got him on social media, bang. You know what I mean? So, you know, I do occasionally get stuff. It's like, oh, you bald twat or whatever, things like that. What else have I had? Just things like that, really, you know what I mean? And it's just like, you know, it's like you can either you can't control anything outside of you, can you? But you can control you can control the way you are. So you know what I mean? So as long as you have that knowledge, you go, oh, I don't need to react to that. It's like whatever, you know what I mean? So you can control the way you react to it, but as soon as you try to control that external force, you haven't got control on it, and then you've sort of already started to lose. So you've just got to go, man, it's cool, whatever. I'm living off what I love doing. That's important. I'm a lot more important. So it's fine.
Massively. And by and large, I mean, you are that person who, going right back to the first question, you are that person who's opening the door for other people. So, you know, I'm kind of blowing their minds and introducing them to all of these worlds. So what comes next from you now? Because obviously there's one thing that we haven't touched on is Hell Clex, which is a whole other project which you have with Lord willing. And it feels like there's still a lot of gas in that particular tank as well.
There's a lot of gas there. Yeah, me and Lord Willing are tight. It came around from just, I think I told you this, but Lord Willing's got one of his mates, Red Rebel, they both do a project together. And he did a track called Russian Hats with A.W.D.L it must have been last year. And I saw this track as a suggestion on YouTube and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I heard everyone on. I was like, man, that's a sick track. And I hadn't heard Lord Willing before or Red Rebel. They were both like, man, they're both amazing. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to reach out to see if Lord Willing would want to do something like a collab. And I literally just reached out to him on Instagram. And he came back and he was like, oh man, I really appreciate you getting in touch. Send me some beats, whatever. So I sent him some beats and he was like, oh man, these are really sick. And I was like, oh man, pick one. Let's do a collab. And I was like, how much do you charge? He was like, oh nah, let's just do it. And then one thing led to another, and we just started to chat a bit more. And we connected more, and yeah, we've sort of grown this amazing working relationship. Well, he's a friend, you know. So I get in touch with him every day. I was talking to him earlier. He's in Tennessee at the minute. It's amazing. He's in Nashville doing some stuff. So it's pretty cool. So I chat loads with Lord Willing, and we got tons in the pipeline. He's linked me up with loads of people over there in the US. And vice versa as well. And we're always chatting about what we can do to develop what we're doing. So I've got a couple of things brewing for Hell Clex at the minute. Now my album's done. So that's quite cool. I've just finished his album as well, produced it and stuff. His album's out in August as well. So that's fully
wow. So from an Instagram message of appreciation, within the last 18 months, you've ended up producing his album and you've written, I mean, there's already been a whole EP's worth of stuff and there's more to come as well.
Yeah, and we formed an actual project together, like a musical branding. Yeah. You know, so Hell Clex is more than just me and Lord Willing. It's more of a, you know, anything we do, if we put that Hell Clex branding on it, then it's going to have the bigger, you know, the bigger picture. So not just me and him, but, you know, the whole bridging the gap kind of thing. That's what we're aiming at. So hopefully I'm going to go over there, not too long, hopefully. We're going to get some stuff done and vice versa as well, get him over here, and we're going to sort of tour and stuff as well, hopefully. So yeah, well, that's something that's always bubbling. And I feel like we're nowhere near where we need to go with that. I think there's opportunities there. He's opened up a lot of doors for me in like Poland and stuff. He's got Polish roots. and he's been working with massive Polish rappers over there, and he's been like, hey, if you want to get some beats over to me, we'll get it sorted. So we've got Payer on the beat. He's got millions of followers in Poland and stuff. Got another guy called A.W.D. He's got millions of followers. He's on Def Jam in Poland.
Wow.
So there's loads of things there, and it's all. So I've been making all the beats here, sending them to him. He's putting his verse on, I'm mixing it. He sends it to Poland, gets those guys on it, and then I mix it and finish it off here. So, there's a lot of gas in that. Yeah, I think so.
Wow. And that just makes me proud, the fact that like Wales there is like, the kind of HQ for those beats. So it's going from America to Poland via North Wales with your stamp on it as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the next stuff that comes out from you then following the album? And I know it's really hard to talk about that because the album, this podcast will come out like days after the album is released. This is still fresh news.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, so we got the album out on the 17th, which is my album, obviously. And then I've got a single coming out with my man Shamonics. It's You're Gonna Like This One's Dave. It's full on liquid drum and bass. And it's all in Cymraeg called Iaith y Nefoedd. It means the heavens language. So that's coming out, and then we're going to be dropping that in August before the Eisteddfod. And I got another single on the way then with Band Prester Gibbs, so it's like a hip hop brass track, which is sick. It was going to be on my album, but we weren't able to do it in time, so I thought, no stress, let's just release it as a single. So we got that, and then we've got some Hellclax Bubbling, which I'm going to be working on, and then Lord Willing's albums in August as well. So those things are going to be lined up for the next few months after the album. So yes, we've still got things, we've still got momentum going. I've got another track in the bag with Lord Willing and Milo Stone from Bristol as well, which is like a sort of a nice little hip hop called Throw It Up. So we've got that going on as well. So yeah, we've got a few things in the bag. It's all good.
Would you say this seems like then maybe one of the busiest periods of your career so far, in terms of like the diversity and the people that you're connected with, really, and that kind of just like a truly global reach around the world?
Yeah, we're slowly getting there, but these things take time, don't they? You just got to keep chipping away. Like the little things get dropped off from the universe. Like Chuck D playing that track with Guilty was just like that. I was having breakfast with my wife, and I heard it, and I was just like, "Hang on a minute, have I just heard that? What?" So things.
Wow! So you weren't aware that he was going to represent in that way.
Crazy.
Wow.
And then Captain suggested that I get in touch with Akil, the MC. So I was chatting with Captain in Focus Wales about collabs, and he was like, "Hey man, you should maybe reach out to Akil. I reckon he'd be up for what you're doing." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I managed to get Akil's details and that, and we hit it off straight away. And he was like, "Man, I love your beats and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, crazy." So I chat quite a bit with Akil as well now. So he's got quite a grounding in Newport as it goes. He spent a lot of time there, so that was his link. Yeah. So he's got big links to Wales. So
wow, you don't know these things until you have these conversations with people. Exactly, you don't realize. Because quite often, so you either get it's either one extreme to the other. You either say where you're from and you say Wales, and you get a complete blank look on your face, and you have to say next door to England or part of the UK or whatever, or people will have stories for days about how they've been on a holiday or they've got a relative, especially in America, I think, because loads of people emigrated over there, really. And I think maybe that's why there is that kind of connection in that type of way.
Can I give one more shout out as well to something that was really cool that I totally forgot?
Yeah, of course, man.
This is really cool. The artwork for the album,
yeah.
So basically my man, James Jones, I was in school with him. He was always been an amazing artist. And, he was just a cool guy. We were really close mates. We all had a close, tight circle of friends, whatever. Left school, and that was it. Hadn't seen James for I don't know how long it is, 20 years or something. And then over Christmas last year, he got in touch. He was like, "Hey, hope you're well. I just letting you know I'm in Anglesey again," because that's where he's from, obviously. Over Christmas, just wondering if you wanted to link up. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, man, for sure." So I linked up with him. I was like, "Oh man, James, how's it going?" We had a good chat, and he's got multiple businesses under his belt. Super cool guy, and he designs book covers for a living, and his wife does as well. And super cool guy. And he was like, "Hey, we should collab." And I was like, "Man, I'd love that. Let's do something for the album." And then that's how the album came across. So my man Jason from A.W.D.L from Llandudno way that way, he took a load of photos, like photo shoot stuff, and he got the picture of me on the bench, and then James compiled it all and then made the A.W.D.L cover. So, you know, if you'd have told me in school that me and James would be collaborating 25 years later on an album with Chuck D on it and Guilty Simpson on it and Akil the MC on it, I wouldn't have believed you, you know? So the fact that we've got to that point so many years later is just an amazing thing. And it just goes to show that the universe has all sorts of things ready to give you. You just gotta be patient and wait your turn, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. I think you do, and just keep that vision in check, really, isn't it? Stay true to what you want to do, really, and be prepared for the ups and downs, and enjoy that journey, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Well, long may that journey continue, man. It's been a real pleasure. And I knew this would happen as well. I've still got 1,000,001 questions, so we're gonna have to save them for another podcast or another interview or video. Or
we're all good.
Thank you so much, Ed, for joining me. And I wish you all the best with the album, and I'll speak to you again really soon.
Pleasure. Thank you, Dave.
Nice one, man.